Hi, it's Paul Camillos. Welcome to Series 6 of Shooting the Breeze. Join me and my co-host Jacinta Govind alongside the STB crew as we cover women's hoops and women in hoops. We'll share conversations and get a little deeper with inspiring players, amazing coaches, and the legends from behind the scenes. Especially in this series, we'll be talking to dream chasers that give it their all and lead with their heart.
I think that the offer that the New Zealand League is making for players over there is pretty good. And if you are looking for a change as a player, you want a new experience, there's, some okay money going around as well. Why wouldn't you consider it?
Yeah, it's and it's a short season. I mean, you get your Christmas back.
You do, yeah. You do. You get your Christmas back.
From our nation's capital, UCCaps Weekly's Simon Peters and Michelle Hocking join us to talk about some huge changes coming from WNBL Free Agency. Mirroring these big movements is a new era in the WNBL. New team, new consortium of owners slated for April 25, and competing for prime talent is the newly rebooted Tauihi New Zealand League. So while we soak up NBL1 Finals and 2 weeks of Olympics Opals and Gangurru's action, we catch our breath on a whirlwind of WNBL free agency changes. Enjoy. Welcome to Shooting the Breeze. It's our free agency pod, and we've been joined by the crew from UCCaps Weekly, Michelle Hocking and Simon Peters, and we also have to give Michelle a big shout out on being appointed president of Basketball ACT. So, how you guys doing?
Yeah, we're here. It's been a long couple of months. We haven't been on air for a while, but we've had some family things happening and some real life things happening, and just struggling.
Good to be back.
Yeah, struggling through a lovely Canberra winter, and good to be talking to some people in a warmer climate.
Yeah, well, don't you just hate it when life gets in the way of basketball?
I know, right?
Basketball is life, isn't it?
That's right, so they tell me.
Yeah.
Okay, now we've got a lot to get through in this pod because, I mean, first of all, free agency started later than it was expected.
Oh, a lot later.
A lot later, and then we had the Tauihi League, which kind of threw a big spanner in the works with the change in their schedule, and we'll touch on one of the announcements that came out in relation to that. Not to mention the Melbourne Boomers license going to Geelong. Yeah. And if we add to all of this, all the WNBL players heading to Europe, we got a lot of moving pieces in the run-up to the start of this season.
Saying to Michelle the other day, it feels like we're playing pick-up sticks. We're just getting the whole league and throwing it up in the air and seeing where it lands.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. First of all, let's just sort of touch on, there's been a few big announcements just in the last few days. And I think one of the ones that's really surprised me that dropped today is Lara McSpadden is going to the New Zealand Tauihi League.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty much my reaction.
Yeah.
I suppose the first question I want to ask you guys is, do you think we're going to be seeing, some other WNBL players who are on the free agency list potentially going to New Zealand?
Yeah, I reckon we might. I think that the offer that the New Zealand League is making for players over there is pretty good. And if you are looking for a change as a player, you want a new experience, there's, some okay money going around as well. Why wouldn't you consider it?
Yeah, it's and it's a short season. I mean, you get your Christmas back.
You do,
yeah.
You do. You get your Christmas back. And I think, and particularly for players that are potentially not big names in a team and not getting big minutes, it might be an opportunity for them to really get out and, have a crack at a season where they've got a much bigger role than they might have in a WNBL team, for example.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I'm guessing that we're going to be seeing more names are going to be showing up in New Zealand. And that's going to make things interesting because, like we said earlier, there's a lot of players who've also decided to go, and name players, have decided to go to Europe this season.
Yeah, I feel like it's the league's at a real pivot moment.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that we've talked about for years and years and years about the league taking that next step forward and to becoming more professional. And they've talked about BA stepping back and big money coming in. We've talked about that forever. And now we're actually in this position where it's actually going to happen, but not until the next season.
Yeah.
Like this season's going to be a bit of a last hurrah of the old school and the old way of doing things. So, yeah, I kind of feel like that it's in such a state of flux at the moment that maybe some of the players just think, well, if I go away for a year and do something else and then see how the new season, the new look WNBL comes down, yeah, it's just a really interesting time, I think. Everything's really up in the air.
And I think the other thing too is that players, this is their profession, and there was a delay to the free agency list, there was a delay to the players' agreement. So all of those things start to play on a player's mind. So they start to think about, well, what am I doing next season? And if there's a European offer comes up, and, particularly you talk about players like a Steph Reed, who hasn't done Europe before, and she's really made her mark on our league, and she would be making reasonably good money over there, and it's a great experience for her. Why wouldn't you take that offer? She knows what she can do in Australia. She knows what the Australian League offers for her. So go do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been we could see that it's been a positive experience for a lot of other players. It also helps with, I think, your potential for the Opals, having that international experience, having the experience of playing these other players that you will get in international competition. It's something that they don't really get an opportunity to do in the WNBL season.
No, definitely. And it's, showing our age now, but going back to the early 2000s and around that time when there were a few players that went and sort of tested the waters over in Europe. And I know Natty Hurst went sort of early in around 2010. But talking to players way back then, it was almost like a bit of a lucky dip.
Yeah.
Like you go to Europe and it could be great. You could get some good money. You could get a really good opportunity. You could end up in a league that's awful and, I haven't been paid for 2 months and, the team suddenly folded. So I think there was always a bit of trepidation, I think, about going to Europe, but now it's as professional and as well put together as anywhere else. And it's like basketball. I mean, I think because the European style of play coming through so strongly in the NBA is now, it's almost like a bit of a trailer to that. We're seeing a lot of European players in the WNBA, and it's really been recognised as that legitimate international league.
Very much so. And I think also it'll help Australia and the local competition because ultimately those players will come back to play in the WNBL, like Tolo, for example.
Yep.
And they're going to be able to impart what they've learnt in Europe over the seasons that they've played there with the other people that they're playing with. So it's going to be good in the long term for Australian basketball anyway.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the more that Australian players experience different leagues, whether it's, the Asian leagues or the European leagues, it builds our game, it builds our skill set and bring it back to our league and we only get better and better, not only as a league, but, for our international teams as well.
And having that new sort of NBL involvement too, I mean, the increase from the old NBL to where it is now over a very short course of, 5 or 6 years has just been amazing. And if the WNBL sees that similar sort of growth in market and in money and in
exposure,
players watching and exposure, then players will come back for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the ones with the international experience are also going to be seen as, leaders in whatever team that they sign with.
Yep.
Definitely. They'll be franchise players.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so before we get into looking at the free agency, I suppose we might as well mention that there's been a few issues with the WNBL Free Agency website.
Yeah, it's a little out of date.
Yeah, and it has made it a little bit harder for us to be able to kind of do the homework for this podcast. So for anybody from the WNBL who's listening, if you can, try and stay on top of it, it'd be really helpful.
I'm sure they got nothing else to do.
Especially with the Olympics.
Yeah, that's Olympics, imminent complete rollover of your league. I think about Christy every now and then and just think, man, she must be neck deep in it at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about it. We'll just sort of run through the teams, and I think we'll touch on, who we see as key players, and it'd be interesting to sort of get your opinions on what you think. So let's start off with Adelaide. Now, Natty Hurst signed up again for, I believe, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
With Adelaide, which means she, to me, that means that she's very committed to trying to build the franchise. And I think that's also a good thing, especially with, as we've talked about, the change in the ownership structure of the WNBL coming up after this next season. The thing that's interesting is there's a lot of players that are still on the free agency list, but also just recently was announced that Loz Mansfield is going to Townsville.
Yeah, that's right. Which is a good signing for Townsville. But it does, like for Adelaide, I mean, she was really good for them this last season. And when you look at what they have got signed, I suspect there's probably a few more of the players that are actually signed that have either been announced or have been updated on the list. But if you look at Adelaide, like they've held on to Borlase, Talbot and Bourne, who were three key players for him last season. And I think if you got that core and then you find, I guess, they need a guard, and losing Mansfield was a big loss. So, if they can find a decent guard to put into that mix and then just build players around it, I think they'll have a pretty strong, or, a core group that should be fairly competitive.
Taylor Brazel had a bit of a coming out season last season too. She was really strong. So that's a pretty solid 4 to start with. And, we're pretty confident there's other people signed. We just haven't heard about it yet.
You can't be this close to the season. I know Natty's been working hard.
Yes.
So might be a few New Zealanders, right? Keep doing the New Zealand.
Shout out to Natty for her head coaching role with the New Zealand women's team too. So she's got a lot on her plate, and she does like to be organised. So we're pretty confident that she would have most of her team in a bag by now.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point, because it makes you wonder how many other teams have got people signed up and just haven't made the announcements yet.
Yeah.
Now, out of the free agents list for Adelaide, are there any of the names there that you guys think, they really should make a big effort to re-sign?
I think Taylor Mole. I'd be looking to
really promise, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and they also need to get I reckon an import. They've got to get a Turner back or Willoughby or someone to add into their group, but I'm not sure if either of those two will be coming back. Maybe
exciting if Brie Turner comes back.
Yeah,
from all accounts, she loves playing under Nat and loved her time in Adelaide, so she's been back a few times. So Adelaide fans would be crossing their fingers for that one.
I mean, and some of these players are good role players, and you'd like them to have them to sort of fill out your bench, but I still think they probably need to either get Turner back or someone of that calibre. Yeah, because you look at that and you've lost Mansfield, so who's going to step into that real sort of point guard role for them is the question.
Yeah, well, and the other question is, out of all the players who are out there on the free agency list, have they made any approaches to the guards to be able to get them down to Adelaide?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you look at who's out there on the free agent list in terms of guard. I mean, there's some pretty good names who in that guard spot. So you've got Whitcomb, you've got Cabillo potentially coming back. She's been playing in the NBL after her knee injury. You've got Maddie Rocci still out there on that free agent list. Now, some of these guys are probably signed, but you'd be going after someone.
Yeah. Yeah, and interestingly as well, this is one that I kind of swing back and forth on, and that's on Jocelyn Willoughby, because last season she seemed like she was having a lot of fun down there in Adelaide. But was she having enough fun? And was she enjoying basketball in Adelaide enough to want to come back?
It's always, you just never know with the US imports. It's rare that they do come back. I think that's probably a positive sign for Natty and for Adelaide with Brie Turner, because she's been back a number of times.
Yeah.
So she clearly enjoys playing here. But, it's kind of rare to have a US import come back twice. I mean, when Kia Nurse did it at the Caps, it was a big deal to get her back for a second season.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of team Nat gets to put together for Adelaide, because last season they played well,
really well.
If a few games had gone their way, it would have been very different at the end of the season. So as you said, keeping that core together, great. And a few of the right pieces, and I think they could be real contenders for finals.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on to Bendigo. Bendigo is interesting because they've announced 5 players, and, rumour is that Kelly Wilson's coming back as well. So,
What's our ruling on rumours, Paul? Are we going to speculate on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're all up for speculating on rumours.
I'm hearing there's more big names going down to Bendigo.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of rumour going around. Going back to what we started about at the beginning, there's a lot of movement. People changing teams left, right, and centre. So it's going to be interesting. But Bendigo kind of broke my heart because they took Tolo back.
Yeah.
Well, didn't take Tolo back. They took Tolo off us.
That's right.
So I'm thrilled that Mariana's back, but gutted that she's not a Capital anymore.
Yeah, I got to say, I was surprised that she ended up at Bendigo.
Kelsey Griffin is a great recruiter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like getting the old band back together.
Yeah.
You got Kel, they
Tolo, yeah.
Tolo.
Casey Samuels,
Yeah.
Casey Samuels was there at the Caps as well. So.
Yeah. And Casey's just recently signed up for 2 years, so she's obviously seeing Bendigo as a good home, and obviously Bendigo is seeing her as a keeper for the roster and for what they're trying to build. And obviously they've got a really good relationship with Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And look, Casey had a great season last season, didn't she?
Yeah.
Like, she really
Super strong NBL1 season.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's
we let that one slip.
Yeah.
She was here, but
look, if Kelly Wilson is going around again, I think that's great. I think she just brings that in that guard spot. She probably can't play the minutes she used to play and all that sort of stuff, but she's just so super smart. And with that group out there on the floor, you've got Abby Waring in the guard spot, and you've got Ash Hanning and Mariana Tolo. They're big. They've got a nice rounded out group just with the signings that we know that are coming. I think they're looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's a solid core that they've got there. If it does turn out that Kelly Wilson does go back, that's a strong core of 6 players. And look, let's be honest, having seen what LJ's managed to put together in terms of performances over the last few years, and she plays minutes appropriate to how she's feeling on any given game. But when she does hit the floor, so I think Kelly can also provide a lot to the team.
Absolutely.
And she'll be she'll just keep adding to that record number of games.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think Bendigo have got a really good start to their group. So, it'll be interesting to see what other pieces they put around it. And there's rumours of some big names potentially going there. But
okay.
And they're owned by SEN, who have just sold the Wildcats for a pretty good profit. So they're the money team, I reckon, Bendigo this season.
Well, yeah. And if you are cashed up, you've got a cashed up owner and you can sort of bring in some other players, can you share any of the rumours that you're hearing?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
And that's the thing. There are
rumours.
Yeah, it's okay. They're rumours.
I've heard from a couple of people that Sammy Whitcomb is going there.
Oh!
And I've also heard, and this is where I'm starting to sort of have some disbelief, because I've also heard that maybe Tess Madgen is moving there as well. To sort of be back home, closer to Melbourne and stuff. But I'm just thinking that group.
With either one of those players went there.
I know. And if they all go there, then who's going to touch the ball?
Yeah.
So a lot of people who are used to having the ball in their hand a lot. Man, it would be like the ultimate super team.
Well, yeah. If that turned out, there'd be a hell of a lot of talent in the one team.
Sure.
But also, it means that Kennedy's got a lot of choices in how he sets up his rotations to be able to challenge pretty much anybody else who's on the floor that they're playing against.
Yep. They're going to be even with that group they've assembled now, even if they don't pull in a couple of extra big names like Sammy and Tess, they're going to be strong.
Yeah.
And Kennedy's a great coach, and Kennedy's one of those coaches that, he uses his bench really, really wisely. There's no sort of 8 or 9 or 10 just sitting down the end of the bench doing nothing. He really rotates his teams through really well. So they're going to be super tough. Just the addition of Tolo is massive.
Yeah.
Hannon at 6'5", she's, and she's had a pretty good
get you
NBL
rebounds and get you possession, and but she can score as well. So they're going to be a handful.
Yeah, and I've got to say I've been impressed with some of the performances that we've seen of Ashley down in the NBL1. We've actually been in a few games where the Bandits have been playing, and she's been putting in some great performances. So
she's an athlete. She's so long and just...
And she's... being able to train every week against a Lauren Jackson and
Unique Thompson.
Unique Thompson is going to develop your game, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Be interested to see if anyone picks up Unique Thompson.
Yeah.
Well, that's
you could do a lot worse.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's roll on to a team that's close to your hearts. The Caps. Now, I think one of the big announcements out of this one is that Veely's not coaching and Gori's come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was a big announcement. It was a big call for Veely to make, but she's made it, and she did it at a time when she thought was best for the club to be able to make decisions about the next season. And we know Gori can coach, so it's great to have him back, and he's a familiar face around Canberra, so that's good. But yeah, we've only got a few players announced at the moment. I think we've got 5 signed to the roster.
One of them probably won't play any minutes this season, Jada Clark.
That's right. She'll still be recovering from her knee injury.
Might come back for some tail end of the season games.
But big announcement in Poch.
Yes.
What a pickup that is.
Right? That's a huge pickup.
Yep.
And of course, Jade Melbourne gave us all panic attacks when she decided to go to free agency. But she's pretty wise, the old Jado. Just go out and feel out the market and see what she's worth, and then she's come back. She does love Canberra, and that's massive to have her back. With the addition of Nadia, because we've lost so many players, it's probably the bigger thing to talk about with the Cap. Sharp going to Europe.
Yep.
Fowler going back to Townsville. Going back to Townsville. They were 2 players. Gemma's gone to Geelong. All those 3 young players really had seasons. Last year they really came out
excited and having dreams of them being together for 5 or 6 years and doing amazing things, but
not to be.
Life gets in the way again.
Well, yeah, it does, but it's going to be an interesting rebuild phase because obviously, even though that Gori was on the coaching staff, it's different being the head coach and picking the players that you want to be able to assemble your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you've got some interesting people still on free agency like Talia, Bunce, Beck Pizzy.
Yep.
Any rumours you want to share with us on them?
I'm not sure if it's a rumour or not, but the Caps put out a little bit of a Instagram thing thanking the players that had moved on.
Yep.
And I think it was Sharpie, it was
Fowler,
Gemma, and then Bunce's mum got in the comments and said, "Oh, what about Alex Bunton?"
Oh,
and we're like, "Did Bunce's mum just out that Bunce isn't coming back?" So that was an interesting. A whole bunch of people, sent me a few messages about that. They sort of picked up that was a weird comment to make. It seems nothing's been announced, but we'll have to wait and see. And look, the massive positive too is Nicole Munger's back.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
And Nicole's just getting better and better at that level, and you still got a nice little core there, but yeah.
I'm not sure that we'll get too many returning from the rest of the list. Like, I think Talia will go play in New Zealand, which is where she's played.
It kind of works for her now because she's always had those injury troubles. A shorter, compressed season is better for her, I think. So, I don't know if we will see her play here again or she'll just do NBL1 and New Zealand comp.
Yeah. So I don't think Talia will come back. I'm not sure about Pizzy. I'm not sure what she will be doing. She's been playing down in Victoria.
Yeah.
Bunton, obviously, mum's out at her, so who knows what's happening with her. And then, there's Shaq and Jade and Abby Solway will be interesting because I think she's done her 3 development years, the maximum number of years you can have as a DP.
Yep.
So she'd have to pick up a contracted spot to be able to get on the roster. And then you got the likes of Chloe Tuliak and those people who, will probably go round again.
Chloe Healthy is
really helpful.
legitimate WNBL player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's such a good defender and just gives you that smarts and a bit of that mongrel as well. You always like to have a player like that in your team. It'll go out and bang bodies and chase the boards down. And, she's come back in halfway through this national season and has looked better and better every game. So
yeah, I don't think we'll see any announcements on the Canberra side until after the Olympics because Gori's kind of busy at the moment.
Yeah.
He's got some other stuff on.
He's got something else going on the side.
That's right.
Yeah, it's his side gig.
Yeah, well, hopefully, if you're listening, Gori, you're doing some recruiting while you're over there. So get on it, buddy.
That's right.
Okay, and now let's roll into the new team, Geelong.
Yeah.
Geelong were interesting because they announced Jazz Shelley, and then they were quiet for a while. And then they announced, Keely Froling and Sarah Ellsworthy, Alyssa Brett, Gemma Potter. And there's a whole lot of names just sitting out there as free agents, which are from the Boomers.
Boomers, yeah.
And the question is, first of all, how many of them are willing to make the trek across the bay?
Yeah.
And what sort of a team is Chris trying to build over there?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I look at this list, I'm not too familiar with Brett or Ellsworthy for that matter. And I know Jazz Shelley and I know Froling and I know Potter's Game, but I'm not really that familiar with the other two that have been signed. And then you look through their list and, question mark, is Amy Rochi going to go around again? And then you look at a Tara Reid or a Panina Davidson. Are they going to go play in New Zealand? Because they are, New Zealanders and they might want to go over there. I don't know what their arrangements are and they live here and that sort of stuff. Paige Burrows, Jordan Canada's not coming back. Know that for a fact.
I think so.
No. And I don't know what Hillman's doing and whether, is Christy Wallace going to come back to Australia? Is she going to go play in Europe? Is she going to take some time off? Particularly those WNBA Australians who've going Olympics, back to the WNBA and then into the WNBL, there'll be some tired bodies. And
she's just spent a season in the Caitlin Clark circus, so you could excuse Wally for just taking a couple of months off. It's been pretty exciting for her. Be interesting to see what they can pull out. But I can't believe that any of the coaches at the moment aren't close to having their full teams sorted out.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think a lot of announcements are probably being put on hold because of the Olympics.
Yeah, I'm sure they have.
But yeah, I do agree with you that Panina and Tara may well go back to play in Tauihi for a couple of reasons. First of all, it is the compressed season. But on top of that, there's the potential to be showing off your talents for potential international selection in the future.
Yep.
Yeah.
Plus they get their Christmas back.
They get their Christmas back, exactly right.
Now, the other team and this team was interesting last season because we know that the Perth Lynx, being owned by Basketball WA, were obviously operating in, with a tighter budget than probably a lot of the other teams. And yet they were there at the end and they were really, taking it to a lot of teams.
Absolutely.
So Ryan Petrick has obviously picked a really good team, but now, there's new ownership and they're obviously going to have a bit more of a budget. It'll be interesting to see how they put it together. And the fact that they've kept Anley Maley, Ali Wilson's gone across.
Yeah.
They've kept Clinch Hoycard, Amy Atwell as well. It's now interesting to see how many of the other players that they've got on free agency are going to stay. I think one of the ones that I thought she really played well, particularly at the back end of the season, in terms of consistent performances, was Alex Chiabatoni.
Yeah, she did. She came good at the end of the season. She was reliable and, she was coming back from having a baby, right? So it took her a little while to get back into it. So I think she had a really good season. And I hope she does go around next season. That would be good. And she's a West Australian, right? So she's probably going to stay. If she's going to play, she'll probably play for Perth. So I think if she decides she wants to play, I think she's probably a lock-in for Perth. I don't think she'd go anywhere else.
Keeping Atwell is huge.
Well, you look at the four that
every club in the league would have been going after Atwell.
Yeah. And look, Ryan's recruiting. He likes to, like, you look at the four that he's got, they like to play fast, they like to shoot the three.
Yep.
You know, he's recruiting to that type of style of game. So, you know, the one that's interesting for me that's not on the list anywhere is Mila Goodchild,
Yes.
because she had a good season and she's not on the list there. So I don't know what's happening with Mila. I haven't heard anything about her going elsewhere. And I thought Steph Gorman had a pretty good season. So I think there'll be a few of those players that are sitting there on the free agents list that'll make up the team, that'll be part of the group. Mm-hmm. But I think they need to get another name in the group.
Well, given their history with imports, I mean, they had Marina Mabry, Jackie Young.
Yeah.
Last year,
Ari McDonald. M. Potter was pretty bloody handy. Yeah, so
I'm no doubt that Ryan's
he'll be recruiting,
looking to bring in some similar talent, similar caliber talent there.
Yeah, and look, to be really honest, I mean, for Ryan to put together the team like he did last season, with the constraints he would have been under from a budget perspective, I think he's obviously going to have his eye on players that are really going to complement each other to build that strong overall team, which he did last season. It'll be really interesting to see how that pans out. But as you mentioned about Mila Goodchild, it could just be that her name got left off the free agency list.
That's true, because there's a few missing off it, isn't there? So.
Let's be honest here.
Yes, yeah.
And I got to say, I think, Perth is another one of these teams that, based on history, has got the potential to be there at the pointy end of the season. I know we didn't really sort of talk too much about that when we were talking about the Caps and Geelong, but I think both those teams, for me, there's a lot of unknowns there.
Yeah.
Had the Caps managed to keep a bit more of the core there, I'd say, they got a chance, because what I was seeing out of that team as the season went on, the performance, and I know we're just jumping back to the Caps for a second, but it was like the performances of the Caps, despite the win-loss record across the season, there were some pretty spectacular games there and some pretty spectacular performances and some upsets.
Yep. I think they knocked off a bunch of the top four teams.
Yeah.
They would have knocked off at least three of them at one stage during the season, and there were so many close games. And, just injury dramas, and that's what was so exciting about it. You could literally see that team grow from game to game to game.
And that's what we were hoping was going to happen season after season after season.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not going to be the case.
Yeah. And to be honest, for me, that's what I was seeing with Perth as well. Over the season, they were getting better and better and stronger as they were, the more they played together. And you could see, even given, again, it comes back to that limitation that they had, that was a team that was growing across the season. So, and we know that that's something that Ryan Petrick can do.
Yeah, and I think, he'll put another good group together and he'll just mould them into the style of play that he likes, that will suit the group that he has, and they'll just, as the season wears on, they'll get better and better. And he brings teams together that can just flat out score.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's tough.
And I think the biggest problem they've had over the last few seasons is the fact that they haven't necessarily been able to keep the whole group together.
Yeah.
Whereas now, hopefully, under the new ownership, it'll allow Perth to be able to keep that core together for longer. And if that's the case, for sure, even if it's not this season, for sure in upcoming seasons, they're going to be contenders.
Absolutely.
Next team on our list is last year's champions, Southside.
And so many
questions and so many changes. And I think the biggest change of all is on the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Cheryl Chambers stepped away from the role of head coach at Southside, and they brought in Christy Harrower.
It's a fair swap.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be too unhappy with that swap.
No. I don't think anybody would.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, a new coach into the league. Like, Christy's been coaching, obviously, through the NBL1, and she was an assistant coach, and she's certainly got coaching credentials, but stepping into a head coach role. And
she's infamous for being one of the smartest players to ever play in Australia. So, I guess if you had any sort of doubts, it would be just about how that basketball IQ translates into coaching. But, yeah, I mean, It's Bernie's little girl too. I think she's going to know a little bit about coaching.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet.
To watch her. Yeah.
Yeah. But they haven't got many signed. Well, they might have them signed, but they're not announced, are they, right?
No.
Where we got Beck Cole and Carly Ernst are the only two.
Yeah, and the only rumour I've heard is Conti
is heading to Southside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's the only thing I've heard about Southside. And of course, the $64,000 question is, will Lauren go again?
Okay. Look, this is my opinion, and I'm putting it out there, and part of me hopes I'm wrong, but I got a feeling that maybe she might stay with NBL1, but maybe step back from WNBL.
Yeah. I would be surprised if she went around again. I really would, because I think she's come back. She's won that chip.
Yep.
She's going to the Olympics. She's actually going to be able to finish her career the way she wanted to.
Yes.
Not the way that she was forced to before. Yep. So I'd be super surprised if she goes around again.
Yeah.
And she's also talked about the fact that she feels it being away from her boys, and in the WNBL season, she's away from them.
It's a little bit easier when they're younger too, but they're both at an age now where that's the good years. It's when they're just sponges and they take up all your time with questions and stuff. And and Loz is obviously very keyed into all that stuff. So yeah, I'd be surprised to see her back. We'd all be happy, obviously, but I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, and I think that's why I could see another NBL1 season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the hometown,
That's right.
She plays a lot of games at home. So that means there's not as much travel, and because it's east, it's really local travel. You're not away for
that's right.
a full week or in doing doomsday doubles and things like that. It's like,
Yeah.
You're on the bus Saturday morning, you're back Sunday.
Yeah.
Take the kids with you on the bus, right?
Yeah.
They do a bit of that.
Yeah, you can do a bit of that. Interestingly enough, I was just looking at that list. Conti's not down on the free agency list.
Yeah. Another omission.
Yeah, and look, to be honest, Conti was interesting last season. Again, the thing that for her is that she also plays AFLW.
Mm.
So she's not there for a full season.
Mm.
But when she did come back into the team, she did make, you knew she was there. Yeah. She made impact.
Oh, she's handy for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's interesting if Conti's heading to Southside. I think the other one, that Maddie Rocci, that's a big name on the free agency.
Agency
list. So if you look through the players on the free agents list that were with Southside last year, there's some big names. Lauren Jackson, which we've already talked about. I think Maddie Rocci. Then you've got the imports. So Mercedes Russell, is she going to come back? Is she not going to come back? So
I think Rocci asked some serious questions of the Opals selectors. She was really knocking on that door, and to have a player of that calibre in free agency, that'll be interesting to see where she ends up.
Mm. I mean, if I was Maddie, I'd seriously, if you want to be a point guard, why not be coached by a Christy Hurrah? Right?
Yeah.
That would be
for your own
exciting
development.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn a lot just being coached by her. So I think there's an attraction there for Maddie to stay at Southside.
It's going to be interesting to see. And again, the wild card in this is new style of game that they want to play, that Christy's going to want to get the team playing. She's going to have to put that team together in a way that suits her. And it's going to be a different style of game to Cheryl.
Oh, very much so, I think.
That's right. And I'm not sure what Christy's style will be, what kind of game she likes to play, but some of it might, in the end, with only 2 players signed at the moment, some of that might be determined by about who she can get.
True.
Yeah.
And again, I'd be really surprised if she hasn't got most of her players put away by this late stage.
Yeah. And look, let's be honest, the other player that I think really stepped up in the role of captain last season was Beck Cole.
Yeah.
Right. She did a great job, and having Beck staying on the team in that role, it's a great anchor from which to build.
Yep. And she's the sort of player that attracts other players as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, people want to play with Beck Cole.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, now we're going to roll into Sydney. And Sydney's had some, Sydney's interesting. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier, they've lost Lara McSpadden to the Tauihi League, but signed is Loz Nicholson, Kayla, Shanice Swain, who really just performed outstandingly last season.
Yep.
Emma Clark, Celeste Taylor. Good to see Cherie Kalia back in Sydney.
Absolutely.
And they just announced Dee Dee Richards is back.
Yeah. No, a couple of Sydney fans that are ecstatic about that. Nick Walker.
Yes, Nick.
He's very happy about that.
Yeah, I think he made his opinion known pretty obviously on social media today.
Yeah. And Michaela Ruth, that's an interesting pickup.
Yeah.
Yes.
For Sydney.
Yeah, coming back to Sydney, Michaela. That's going to be an interesting pairing, Dee Dee Richards and Michaela Ruth.
I'm thinking Kayla George and Michaela Ruth. You got those two on the floor at the same time.
Yeah.
It's going to be threes coming from every angle.
Well, yeah, there's that. And, if you've got Dee Dee Richards coming through and doing what she does with those two there to support, look, you got to say that Sydney's going to be up there, barring anything unforeseen.
Definitely.
You look at this point in the pre-season and that group and you're going, well, they're probably the most settled and the most solid group.
Yeah.
That you look at. What have they got? 8, 9 signed right now. And then there's a couple of names.
6 from last year.
6 from last year.
Wasn't there?
Yeah, that's right. And obviously Paige Bradley won't be coming back because they've already got 2 imports signed. So she can't come back to Sydney, that is.
It's interesting to see if someone else picks her up.
Yeah, but you've got Tess Madgen's still sitting there on the free agent list, whether she stays in Sydney or goes elsewhere, which is what we're hearing. Vanessa Panousis, is she going to go around again and stay in Sydney? Don't know, but and obviously Jufferman's is off to college, so she won't be going around. So a few of them, we know won't be coming back, but there's still spots there for the taking.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's going to be interesting to see is, and look, I'm just throwing this out there as a wild card, will there be players who are on that Opals team, if the Opals do well, they medal?
Yep.
Will there be some players sitting there saying, do I hang up my boots with an Olympic medal?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'm not trying to put the mockers on anyone here, but, is Tess Madgen going to go around for one more WNBL season? Or, if they perform well at the Olympics, do you sort of hang it up as what is a captain of the Opals with a pretty successful record, particularly over the World Cup and the Asia Cup?
Mm.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting. I think anything's possible, because she's certainly struggled with injuries of late. Hasn't been able to put together a full season.
Yeah.
So it'd be tempting, definitely. They come away with a silver or a bronze. It would be tempting, but we never know what's going on in a lot of their personal lives.
But I also think there's a couple of players floating around in the NBL1 East competition, particularly I can't remember but playing for Norths, and you've got Renee Garlop there, who's been coaching with the Sydney Flames as well.
Yep.
So there's some connections there. There might be some players. Yeah, Carla Pittman. Oh, she was on the squad last year, but so there's some names there that might pop up into the Sydney squad because they've got 9 already signed, 8 or 9 already signed. So there's not a lot of room left for.
And there's that young girl from Hornsby or Hills,
Jessie May Hall.
She's impressive, man. I wouldn't be surprised to see her end up on the end of the Sydney bench.
And on top of that, they've got this program. There's the program that the Flames have got going to provide pathways for younger players. Yeah. So who knows what sort of a player that program's going to uncover.
That's exactly right. Because there's really there's 2 contracted spots left to go, and then potentially a couple of DPs as well.
Yeah. And now we roll into our last team, Townsville. And Townsville, I got to be honest, Townsville surprised me. Townsville surprised me because, first of all, Loz Mansfield's gone there. And to be honest, that was one that surprised me because she seemed to be quite happy in Adelaide based off last season.
Yeah.
And, Steph Reid is going to Europe and, Michaela Roof's gone to Sydney.
Zatina's going to Europe.
Yeah, Zatina's going to Europe. So there's a few changes happening there that have really kind of just cracked the core that Townsville had.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the list that they've got signed right now, there isn't anyone from that kind of core group, that that have been there for the last few years that are still around. And they are a very new group. So you've got Shields, who was there, and Woods, who were there last year and probably the year before for Woods. Fowler's come new. Lauren Cox, Lucy Cochran, Froling's gone home. I think she played with Townsville as a development player ages ago.
Yeah.
And then JC Sheldon and Lauren Mansfield.
That's a big signing, JC Sheldon.
Yeah. And so it's a whole new group. Like, it really is. You're dead right, Paul. It's like a whole new group that they're putting together there.
Yeah. I mean, look, you can't take anything away from Shannon. He's a great coach. I just think that, for me, I'm just surprised because, to be honest, one of the things that Townsville had going for him over the last few seasons was the stability in the core of the team.
Yep.
And so I was like really surprised when I saw how much of a change has happened.
Yeah.
You take Steph, Zatina, Michaela out. That's 3 starters.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah, that's right. But you're right. Shannon's a great coach. And so I think that it looks to me like he's rebuilding.
Yep.
And looking to the future. I mean, I guess the group that he had probably done what it could, and and people. Steph's gone to Europe because she wants to go experience that, and probably Satina as well. So it's a good opportunity to go. All right, I've lost 2 core players. I'm going to shake it up a bit.
Yep.
I'm going to see what I can do. I think the recruitment of Lauren Mansfield is a great recruitment because she's experienced. She's a good point guard. She brings that maturity to the group, which is reasonably young.
Yeah. So let me ask a kind of a left field question because I'd love to get your opinion on this. How many coaches do you think are starting to build a core team for the first, let's call it, non-BA owned season and starting now to build for that next season?
Interesting question. I
mean, you've been there.
Yeah.
You're not planning just for one season.
You're never planning for one season when you're recruiting.
Yep.
You're always, I guess you're always thinking in a 3 to 4 year turnaround in my mind, because you've got to bring players in as players are going to be going out. I mean, there's a lot more movement in the league than when I coached too, right? Because it is a professional league, so players are going where they're going to get paid. Whereas when I coached, a lot of the players stayed because they had jobs as well, and all that sort of stuff. So it was different. But you're always, as a coach, you're always not just thinking about this season, but you're thinking about the next season and the season after, and how you're going to keep the program going. Personally, I don't think that they're thinking about, what's going to happen when BA steps out of the league. I think they're just thinking, am I at a building phase or am I at a holding phase? Where am I at in my team development and what do I need? I don't think it's necessarily driven by BA moving out and the new ownership coming in.
Because I think there's an expectation that when this change happens, there's going to be more money.
Yes.
In the league. Like, clubs will have more money. It'll obviously take a little while to get all the marketing and the PR and stuff like that. Maybe a season or 2 before that grinds up to full speed. But yeah, it's a really interesting question.
And some of this is different clubs have how much control a coach has over their recruitment as opposed to the management, right?
Yep.
Some management is much more involved in the recruitment and shaping of your player group than at other clubs. So they might have more of an eye to what's happening, next year with BA than the coach actually does. And I just also think that we're at a point in our league where we have a number of players who are franchise players who are coming to the end of their playing career. Yes. So they're starting to think about, do I hold on to a player for another year? Am I starting to build for the future? And you're right. You talked before about some of the players who are in the Opals who are a little bit older going to retire. When those players start to transition out of the league, you're really starting to look at, the league's changing, like that core group of the league's changing, so we need to start putting in the players of the future.
Yeah, and I suppose one of the things that we actually haven't really touched on, and this is real left of centre stuff, is we really got to talk about the free agency potential of the new ownership group of the WNBL. As the announcement said, they're not taking over for this season. but after the season completes. So that means, to the point you were making, Simon, they've got basically from the end of the WNBL season through to the beginning of the next WNBL season next year to build their marketing and their promotion. And the fact that the deal has been done this season means that they've got basically from the date that the deal is signed, sealed and delivered through till the official ownership to be able to study and understand what they feel that they need to do to build the league up from where it is.
Yeah, it's almost an 18-month lead-in, really, from when they made the announcement back in May, wasn't it? May, early June, to the beginning of the 25-26 season. Yeah, it's just going to be really interesting to watch it actually happen because we've all talked about it for so long, about something needing to change. And, yeah, it's just going to be really, really interesting to see it live.
Yeah. I think the other thing that, like the other impact it might have is I wonder how many of the players are only signing one-year deals at the moment, you know, in anticipation of what might the opportunity be the following season for them.
Well, yeah, and that's the big unknown. We don't know what opportunities are going to be there. No one's really sure what's going to happen ownership-wise going forward either. And you know, if there's expansion plans on the cards, now it's not going to happen in the first season, I doubt, but I could be wrong. But for sure, they're going to want to see some level of expansion.
I don't think, you know, every team's going to come out with the same ownership model and the same sort of backroom philosophy. I think it's going to be a hodgepodge to begin with, and there's clearly money and ownership waiting in the wings.
Yep.
And that'll be really interesting. Just touching on that, you know, I mean, we're almost getting a bit of a preview with the Geelong team because it's certainly their PR and their marketing and their social media stuff's been really impressive. And it's been really slick, and it's my understanding that Geelong United brand has been fairly strong through NBL1 and through the JVBL and things like that. So it's been really interesting watching those guys come out and sort of announce what's going on down there. I've been really impressed with it.
Yeah, look, one of the things that's impressed me with the way they've operated is that you're seeing news about Geelong United every week. There's something new coming out every week, even if it doesn't necessarily apply to the WNBL. Or we're announcing our new marketing person, we're announcing a new whatever the role is. They're actually telling everybody who's interested, these are all the people that are coming on board, not just players and coach.
Yeah. They are really selling and promoting the whole franchise.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a big step up for some clubs who've traditionally, you know, it's a small league. It's always been kind of semi-amateur. And you can kind of get away with not being super slick and not communicating a lot with your fans or your stakeholders and things like that. So it'll be really interesting to see that change in a lot of clubs as well, because I think everyone is going to have to lift their game a bit. I mean, you've seen a massive change in Sydney in the last couple of years with that new ownership. Not only the team on the court, but the things that have been going on behind the scenes, and it's clearly a different philosophy there. Very professional, very slick. And it'll be really exciting to see every club sort of level up on that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah. And I mean, you can even see there was a difference from the time when the new ownership took over, that over a period of years, things changed significantly as well. So the philosophy they brought in at the beginning is very different to the philosophy they've got now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, we've covered off all the teams. We've covered off our ideas about the new ownership of the league. I suppose the last thing we really need to talk about, because as we're recording this, we are maybe, 2 days away from the Olympics.
Yes.
Paris.
Bring it on.
Bring it on, absolutely. I think there's going to be a few really early mornings in there for us.
I looked at the times of what games are on, and in the pool games, they're all on at reasonable times.
Okay.
But once you go to crossover, it's all bets are off.
Oh, yeah.
You're not sure where we'll end up. So we get good sleep in that first week, and then ready for the late nights after.
Yeah, the opening ceremony is at, I think 4:30 Saturday morning.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
So of course, if you want to brave the early Canberra winter morning,
So we got
No.
plenty of blankets.
how do you guys think the Opals are going to go this time round at the Olympics?
Well, speaking of early mornings, we've been up very early 2 mornings this week watching the games and
The friendlies,
Yep.
yeah.
and as Caps fans, we're pretty excited about Miss Jade Melbourne.
Yes.
She's been absolutely kicking it. Looks like she absolutely should be there. Looks very comfortable, playing against Canada. I mean, that Canadian team is full of WNBA players as
Yep.
well. But she's looked really good. I'm a little nervous that we didn't see Izzy Borlase in either of those games. I hope she's all right.
Yep.
We're a little bit nervous about Beck Allen, who in that second game seemed to do something to her leg
Yep.
and disappeared down the tunnel. But outside of that, yeah, we're looking good.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I reckon we're in with a good chance for the gold medal game because it's a strong, strong team. A lot of WNBA players in our squad. And the one player that I think has done really well from being traded is Jade.
Oh, yeah.
It's a golden opportunity, one of those rude introduction to the business side of the WNBA.
Yep.
You rock up to training camp and you train for a couple of weeks and then it's like, okay, you're flying to Washington tomorrow.
Yep.
So I think that was a bit of a shock for her, but I know she's loving it at Washington. She's really enjoying the coaching, really enjoying the group of girls, and we're just watching her career sort of grow before our eyes. It's really exciting for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think our group is really strong. I think we've got across the board in all positions. I think we've got strength, and I think we can have different looks on the floor as well. I think the other thing with the introduction of Jade into the group, it's freed up Sammy Whitcomb to play more her game rather than
More
having to play have the pressure of having to play in the point spot like she did a lot or has done a lot internationally recently. I think that Ezzy is ready on the international stage now. Like I think
Be so many Ezzy Magbagor blocks.
yeah, I just think that she's ready for that responsibility of being a key player at an international level. I think she's just matured and her game's come a long way. And the other one is Alana Smith. Now she's really, stepped up and
coming out season.
Yeah. And then you put that core, you put your Jackson around them for 20 minutes a game or whatever. Kayla George coming off as well and
Tolo every game.
and I just think and Madge even, I think that we've got such a solid group that's strong across all positions on the floor and then we haven't even talked about, your Talbot because we haven't seen her a whole lot. But, you got Talbot and hopefully, look, I really hope Beck Ellen's okay because she's had such a bad run with the injury she got at the World Champs. And, I really do hope that she's fit and able to go around. But I think we've got a really strong group. And, I wouldn't have liked to have been selecting the Opals, to be quite honest. I think if you're Darcy Garber, you are the unluckiest player going around because I thought she almost played it. And even like Atwell and Kunik, they really did a great job, as did a lot of other players in the lead up and the pre-tournaments. It's unfortunate we can't take them all, but I just think that the group that they've got together has just got that really great mix of youth, experience, versatility that at an international level. Yeah. I mean, it's no easy group either.
No. And I think one of the keys there is, and you said it, you bring Lauren Jackson on because that she's going to be brought in as an impact player. She's going to be brought in at times where you need that experience, that basketball IQ to be able to, settle down a team or exploit a situation that, where the team is on the verge of going on a run and having someone with that experience hit the floor and be able to lift everyone to be able to reach that potential.
She's a valuable asset to be able to go over and have a word with the referee as well. We saw some classic Loz moments in one of those games during the week where she's, listen, mate, you have to have a talk about this.
Can I have
Not too many referees in the world are going to go.
Yeah,
no laws.
yeah. Could I have a
They'll go. Oh, okay.
could I have a quiet word in your shell like? All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us on this. It's great getting your input and your feedback. And, of course, your unsubstantiated rumours, because they're always great to put out there.
Yeah, I've got my...
He's got lots.
What was that Game of Thrones guy? I've got my little sparrows everywhere. They're not really my sparrows. I just get on the end of some of them.
And we're really looking forward to the Olympics and the upcoming WNBL season. And hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you guys down in Canberra for a game or two.
Back at the AIS Arena.
Back at the AIS Arena.
Yep, very exciting.
Yeah, that'll be great. It's just can't wait. Looking forward to all of it.
Yep.
Michelle, Simon, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Always good to chat.
Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you get our latest pod, and we really appreciate if we could get a like and a review so we can extend the reach to more listeners. And don't forget, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn.